Hey everybody, welcome to the Obsidian Paranormal Podcast. I'm Myron.
And I'm Jillian.
And on this episode, we'll be discussing our 2 investigations of the Old Well Tavern in Simsbury, Connecticut. Before we begin, we would like to apologize for the delay in this episode being released.
Yeah, life just started to be life. So I know we were delayed at one point because I was starting up with a new cohort of teaching witches. But then right before we were set to record this episode, Myron and I went out to dinner at a national chain and something did not sit right with us at all. So we're not going back to that place. And then last weekend, when we were set to record, I started to develop a horrible upper respiratory virus that had me down for the count for a few days. So we are feeling healthy, hale, and ready to release a new episode for you. I hope you enjoy it, and we hope that it was worth the wait.
And as we're recording this, today is actually Jillian's birthday. So happy birthday, Jillian.
Thank you. And happy birthday to you. Yours was just 2 weeks ago. So
thank you.
You're welcome. A Gemini and a Taurus, it just works.
So getting to the investigation, this one was interesting because I had read about this place years and years ago, like long before we ever met. And my old team, we were going to try to get in there and investigate, but it ended up never happening. And years later, I meet Jillian, who was actually friends with the previous owner,
Erica Lang. She and I were chit-chatting one day about the new venture that Myron and I had started with Obsidian Paranormal. And she said, well, you know, my tavern is haunted. And I actually didn't know that she was co-owner of the Old Well Tavern. And I said, well, how about we investigate? And she said, absolutely, come on down. So to set the stage of where the Old Well Tavern is and what to expect if you were to come down and visit, it's in a beautiful town called Simsbury in Connecticut. And Simsbury is definitely that old hometown charm. And the Old Well Tavern is very loyal to its regulars. It has a tavern, and it has, obviously, Old Well Tavern is a tavern.
Yeah, they have pool tables. You play pool. They bring in live bands.
Yeah, they have had like Halloween parties. Really just the heartbeat of the local nightlife, and really just like Cheers, where everybody knows your name. So we mentioned at the top of this episode that we did 2 investigations of the tavern. The first investigation was with Erica, who is now the previous owner, but was the owner at the time. There was a few years in between our investigations. And during that time, Erica and her partner, Frank, sold the tavern to a group of people. And we were in contact with one of the co-owners named Jenna. And we had Erica on the first investigation, and we had Jenna and her daughter, Lily, on the second investigation. So it was nice to have both investigations, especially since Jenna and her team did a lot of renovations and sprucing up of the place in between. So we wanted to see if there was any activity that was heightened up with the change of ownership and the construction.
So as far as claims of activity goes, this one pretty much has the same that we've heard in some of the other places, like footsteps and voices and things like that. But one of the things that makes this one interesting, and it stands out, is that there's a possible person buried in the basement.
Yeah, there's not many places that we've investigated that we can actually put a camera and a voice recorder on an alleged grave of somebody who died.
And is buried in the tavern.
Right. That kind of leads us into...
Yeah, why don't you talk about this one? Because you know more about the backstory.
Backstory, history, all the good things. I got you. So the Old Well Tavern is old. It's a tavern, and there is actually a well on site. So props for the naming. It was built during the British rule, which was back in 1730s. The Old Well Tavern in Simsbury became an official tavern in 1866 when it began operating as a stagecoach shop. That's hard to say. Stagecoach stop. And roadhouse known as Old Knight's Inn. In 1880s, the Higley family took it over and turned it into a tavern with a brothel upstairs. Now, the legend of the body comes from one of the Higley's relatives who was named Seth, and he died in the tavern during a major snowstorm. Now, for those of you listening who aren't from New England or the northern climates, when somebody dies in the wintertime, the ground is too frozen to be able to dig a proper grave. So my father passed away in January of 2008. And we had a funeral and we had a service for him, but we weren't able to bury him until the ground thawed. And so that's a reality of living in a colder climate. And modern times hasn't really been able to improve on that much. So in the 1880s, when poor Seth died, he had the same fate. So he couldn't be buried in a proper grave, but the ground was soft enough in the warm stable area of the Old Well Tavern. So they buried him in the basement. Unfortunately, economics are economics, and the family didn't have money to dig him back up and send him back home. So legend has it that Seth still resides there. So time passed, and the brothel and the tavern were still active during Prohibition. So there is another link that is actually reminding me of the Shanley Hotel from our last episode. There's not many stories about any clandestine or speakeasy activity during Prohibition. I'm sure if we were to dig, we might be able to find something, but I didn't find anything. And in 1916, the name was changed to the King Philip Diner until 1935, when Arnold Dayton and his wife purchased the building, and that's when it went to the Old Well Tavern. Over the last 90 years, it has been Hop Meadow, the Inn Place, Gemini's Cafe. Oh, hey.
That's interesting.
Right? The Lobster Barn, Reno's Gathering Place, and then finally back to the Old Well Tavern. So my friend Erica and her partner Frank owned it for 16 years. And then just recently in 2025, it was renovated and taken over. And the members of the team, we met Jenna and her daughter Lily. And the other members of the team that owns it now are Sean, Scott, another Scott, and Natalie. They've done a great job with sprucing it up, keeping the same Old Well Tavern charm, but doing necessary renovations, and the menu has stayed very similar. They're known for their wings, amazing burgers. We've loved eating out there. Longtime patrons and the staff affectionately speak to Seth all the time, and it is known for the spirits that haunt it.
So as far as the investigations go, the first investigation we did there, it was Jillian, myself, and Erica present. And it was in January, I believe January 2nd was the date.
Right around New Year's.
Yeah, I think it was the day after. So I think it was January 2nd.
I think that year they were closed right after New Year's, but they were open for Christmas before that.
Yeah, they did have it decorated really nicely. A Christmas tree in there and everything.
Yeah, it was really nice and cozy. And
the lights.
Yes, it is a perfect time for paranormal investigations, especially as much as Myron loves Christmas.
Yeah, I love cozy lights too, so that worked out well.
Indeed. So we interrupt this podcast to tell you that normally we have Mushu as the resident kitty in our recording room. Tonight we have Little Miss Destiny.
And she's been eyeing the desk, so we know what she's thinking.
Yeah, so if you hear the pitter patter or a weird thunk as she's sniffing at my microphone right now, she apologizes. She's just a little precocious little kitty.
Yeah, and she insisted we let her in. That's why. So.
Yeah, we didn't want you guys to hear her scratching and meowing at the door. So back to the cozy lights and the cozy investigation.
So we started the investigation on the second floor. And isn't that where somebody died? In the bathroom, I think? Yeah,
the second floor during the course of the history was known for being where the sex workers would take their clients. It is a rough business, and unfortunately, one of the... Sorry about that. That loud thunk, as expected, was Destiny. So one of the workers got to the point in her life that she just couldn't go on and unfortunately made the decision to take her own life. So when we were up in that bathroom, I actually wanted to see if I could connect with her and see if maybe I could give her some closure to help her to move on. One of the things that happened while we were up there, I remember, was that every single one of our batteries drained. Like it was like full battery down to nothing. And that is classic. They're drawing the energy from somewhere in order to communicate with us.
Yeah, it was really weird because that was one of the few times, actually, that might be the only time I could think of where all the video cameras and the voice recorder all stopped at the same time. It was really bizarre.
Yeah, and there's a witchy technique that I use where if I want to add energy to a spell or a ritual or, to myself or one of the cats, I can create an energy ball between my hands, and a lot of witches use this technique. And so I tried during that time in the bathroom to create that energy ball. And do you remember what happened?
Yeah, it actually worked.
Yeah.
Where everything actually was fully charged.
So, I mean, that was a pretty neat experience to have up there. I hope that by speaking kindly to that person who tragically took her life, that maybe it helped her to find some closure.
Other than that, as far as the second floor goes, there was a room up there that she was using as an office. And we were investigating that room and using the spirit box. And one of the names that we always get on the spirit box came up, but none of us heard it at the time. And then I started talking about how we always get these two specific names. And then a couple of seconds later, we got the second name. There wasn't too much more on the second floor. So then we went downstairs to the main floor. At one point, we're doing the Estes experiment, and Erica was under, and they had a little fireplace over there.
It was nice and cozy. It was like an electric fireplace, and they had stockings on it.
And I had noticed that it was lit. And I asked Jillian, I'm like, did Erica turn that on? And then Erica responded saying, didn't do it. Now, keep in mind, we were doing the SD, so she had the headphones on, the spirit box, so she couldn't hear what we were saying.
Yeah, so I'm going to say that the spirits were saying, I didn't do it.
Or she didn't do it. And they were telling us, because they didn't say I, they just said didn't do it.
Oh, that's right.
Could have been either or.
Yeah. So after we wrapped up on the main floor, we headed down to the basement. And I was really curious to see if we were going to be able to connect with whom they call Seth, which we are so lucky to be able to go into these basements of places. A basement in New England tends to have like a dirt floor, not where they keep the food. There's a separate basement where you have like the water heater and the electrical panel.
Well, in the really old historical buildings, they have the dirt floor.
Yes. In New England, basements are known in historical places to having dirt floors. There is a finished part of the basement where they have their storage for stuff pertaining to the restaurant. But then you have to kind of walk over like a little ladder, and you're in the place where they had the horses during the stagecoach era of the tavern. So it was there that Erica and I were talking about some place to sit that wouldn't get my pants dirty. Erica had said, do you want somewhere to sit? And we're debating between like a spool and an old cooler. In the middle of this recording, we're not actively investigating, but we get a little girl voice that's like is like sing-songy, almost like she's responding to Erica saying, yeah, I do. Like she wants someplace to sit with us. Neither one of us acknowledged it on the like actively. So this was definitely an EVP, and it was like sing-songy. On both of the investigations, there was like the feeling of like a little girl. Could have been, you know, a child from one of the sex workers, or maybe from a family. She didn't give a name, but I thought that was pretty significant.
Sometimes we get evidence while we're setting up, and in this particular investigation, we were setting something up in the basement, and we got an EVP, what sounds to us like it's saying, no, I didn't. But there was nothing asked. Like, we didn't ask any questions, so...
Somebody might have had a guilty conscience, maybe?
Yeah.
I absolutely love the EVPs that we capture when we're not actively asking questions, because those feel so genuine. So as we were packing up, we were back on the main area, and we were chatting with Erica about the different things that we say to make sure that nothing follows us home. And she was really grateful for that, because she was always worried that something negative or something nefarious might follow her home. And as we were chatting that up, there's an EVP of just, Erica said, I don't want anything to follow me home. And then you hear the words, yeah, after. So I think the spirits don't want to follow anybody home. So I think anybody who goes there is pretty safe. They're not going to get any hitchhikers coming on home with them. At least not spiritual. Up to them if they want to pick up somebody on the side of the road, although I don't recommend that in general. So with all of this good evidence, when we read about the fact that Erica and Frank had sold, it made perfect sense to us to contact and reach out to the new owners. And they were also really excited about us coming to investigate, which is always fun.
So for the second investigation, it was Jillian, myself, one of the owners, Jenna, and her daughter, Lily, and one of our guests, Mina.
Mina has been on, at that point, a few investigations with us previous, and she's a solid investigator, and we were so happy to have her along. She's a repeat guest, so you'll hear her name again in other investigations. Unfortunately, one of our team members, Heather, she wasn't actually able to make it at the last minute. Life being life, we understand that happens, but she was supposed to be on this investigation, which is significant.
Yeah, Mina didn't know that.
Right. With the second investigation, we started top bottom as well. So we started on the second floor, then the main floor, and then the basement. We had some just really interesting things, but keep in mind that Heather was supposed to be here, and she, at the last minute, wasn't able to.
And with a lot of these properties that we investigate, when we go back a second time or a third time, we seem to get more and more evidence each time we go. So we don't know whether that's them feeling more comfortable with us or we're getting more open to this stuff or what. But at this investigation, we started on the second floor, like Jillian said, and we actually got a pretty good amount of stuff this time.
I think personally, like my theory on that is it's kind of like the first time you meet somebody, you might be more shy and more reserved. And then the second time you kind of warm up to them, and, you know, the more you get to know somebody. That's my personal take on that one.
Yeah, it seems like it's happened pretty much any investigation we've done where we've gone back a second or third time. Seems like we've gotten more evidence, solid evidence too.
Yeah, and if any of you have any other theory as to why that might be, of course, You can email us at obsidianparanormal@gmail.com. We would love to hear your theories, love to hear any of your personal ghost stories. Would love for you to just say hi. So on the second floor, we went into that bathroom again because we wanted to kind of try to reproduce or maybe get some clarification. So I decided to go under the Estes. And so since I was sensory deprived, Myron, you should probably tell everybody what happened.
This one was interesting because she was in the bathroom and we had the door, I don't know, halfway closed, I guess. But the rest of us were all out in the hallway asking the questions. So we had the word bank that we use in our hand, and we were asking the questions while she was in the other room under the blindfold with the spirit box on and the headphones. And one of the questions that I asked was, can you tell us any of the words that are showing on the word bank? And she actually said two of the words that came up, which were rich, which is a little bit significant to that place in general, and the word right, which also came up on the word bank. And she said that.
I had no idea until I took the blindfold off, took the headphones off, and everybody's like, no way. So I love it when that happens in real time like that.
Another response that we got up there, too, was, I believe it was Jenna that had asked if Richard was in the military.
Yeah, she asked if he was a veteran.
A veteran.
Because I heard that on the recording later. I didn't hear it while you guys were doing it, but we just listened to it.
Yeah, we got the response was yes.
And we found out that Richard was a regular who had tragically passed away off-site, but he was a regular of the Old Well Tavern. And they have tributes to him throughout the restaurant and the bar. And he indeed was a veteran. It's good to know that possibly in the afterlife, we can come back and haunt our old haunts. I love that for him.
And I think the last thing that we got on the second floor was while Jillian was still under the Estes, Mina had asked how old the person was. And Jillian responded first with the number 1 and then the number 11.
I don't know the significance of that, but I always think it's significant when of all of the things that you can hear in the spirit box to get numbers when asked about numbers. I like that.
There was a little bit more. We did keep getting the phrase look up.
Yeah, I kept on hearing in the spirit box, look up, look up. The tavern at that point was still going under renovations and improvements. The contractor the next day noticed that there were some places in the roof that needed some shoring up. I am not going to talk about construction things and talk to you guys about roofing, I promise. But they did make the necessary repairs, and Jenna let us know that the look up was significant because the roof needed attention. So from the second floor, we did investigate the main area, but we didn't really catch anything of significance that we can, without a doubt, say we feel it's evidence. But we did then move down to the basement, and they were definitely chatty down there. So remember just a few moments ago when I talked about how our investigator, Heather, was supposed to be on this investigation? Well, when we got down to the basement, we had Mina and Lily under the Estes together. I asked if there was anything that the spirits needed, and Mina said Heather. And I asked, who is Heather to us? And Mina said either Seth or Best. Myron and I are disagreeing on what we hear there because there was a lot of noise from the equipment down there, and Mina was speaking softly.
It may not even be a response with either of them.
Yeah, it may be something different. But what was significant after that was Heather has a spirit that goes around with her on investigations named Robert, and that's somebody who's connected to her and her family. And so we followed up with, is Robert here with us? And I believe Lily said yes. So that was very significant because Heather was supposed to be there with us. So I think, it might be a good opportunity that Heather comes back and investigates again with us.
And as we mentioned, none of them knew that she was supposed to be there.
Right. It's not like Mina was our backup and we said, hey, Heather can't make it. Can you come? And they were blindfolded listening to the spirit box, so they couldn't have heard the questions anyway.
Also, while we were down in the basement, we decided to go over to where we believe Seth is buried. And we did an Estes session around the grave. And Jenna was under the Estes. We had asked if Seth was there and wanted to talk to us. And her response was yes.
Unfortunately, that's all that was said.
Yeah, he never came through.
So maybe we'll have to go back and see what he did want to say. Still in the basement. At this point, under the Estes, Lily was under, and Myron asked, do you know our questions before we asked them? And Lily replied with yes. We did follow up and ask, how do you know? And crickets. We didn't get any response from that. Then another significant thing is I don't often text other people while on investigations. I want to be fully present. But I thought it was appropriate to, in between setting up, in between some downtimes, to send Heather a text message and let her know that Robert came through to her. Once I sent the text message to her, she replied back, just again apologizing that she wasn't at the investigation. But she used some beautiful language, and out of nowhere, she mentioned the word stardust. Now, you're going to have to wait quite a few episodes before we get there. But 5 investigations after this one, we investigated stardust in Salem, Massachusetts. We hadn't scheduled it yet. I don't even think I'd even started my conversations with Sarah Franke yet, and the owner. There was almost an aha moment in there that she just casually mentioned stardust. Who mentioned stardust in a normal text? So we think that's significant.
And I guess the last one is when we're doing the Estes in the basement, Mina and Lily were under, and I was asking questions, and I had asked if there's anyone down here, can you do something to let us know, maybe tap one of them on the shoulder or something like that.
Right, you specifically said tap on the shoulder.
And right after I said that, Mina shrugged, one of her shoulders jerked. So
she didn't say that she felt touched.
Yeah, the topic never came up.
But on video, we have her shrugging her shoulder directly after Myron asks if they can tap her on the shoulder. So I think, in conclusion, we need to go back to the Old Well Tavern and do a third investigation to see if we can figure out what it is that Seth wanted to talk to us about.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
As far as, do we think the Old Well Tavern in Simsbury, Connecticut is haunted? I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to agree. And I think one of the things that I would say actually basically confirms it in my mind is when we were asking you the questions and you were saying what was showing on the app.
Yeah, so not only is it haunted, but it's haunted by literate ghosts, which in historical times, not everybody was literate and couldn't read. I would also say that the ghosts at the Old Well Tavern like being at the Old Well Tavern, and they don't have any interest in following anybody home. I think they just want to party with people and enjoy some good wings, enjoy some good beer, and they are not harmful in any way. If you want to read more about the Old Well Tavern, you can certainly do so at our website, which is obsidianparanormal.org. You can also go to their website, which is oldwelltavern.com. We think that the new owners are doing an amazing job, and we are grateful to Erica and Frank for taking such good care of it before Jenna and her team could take over.
And we'd also like to thank Jenna and her team
Yeah, it was great that the new team let us in to investigate. And also Lily, Jenna's daughter, for tagging along. She did great with the investigations, which isn't always the case with teens. So that was a kudos to her and her mom. And our next our next podcast episode are two back-to-back investigations that we had that were at undisclosed locations. We're very careful about protecting the properties that we investigate. So the owners of these properties are going to allow us to speak about it, but as long as we don't give any identifiable information about where they are. So we won't be able to get into the history of the places. And so we'll get right into the investigations and combine them into one episode for you all. I do want to also take a moment, since we did talk about suicide and the choice that somebody had made to take their own life. Please, if you are feeling that that is your only option, there are other options for you. There is a new telephone number specifically for those of us who feel suicidal. It is 988. You can call it and you can text it and you can reach out to make sure that we're never having to investigate you. So, as always, thank you so much for sticking with us. We hope you enjoyed this episode and that it was worth the wait. And you can check us out all over social media at Obsidian Paranormal. And as always, stay spooky.